Good evening. I'm calling to order this meeting of the Arlington Select Board on March 24th, 2025. I'm Select Board Chair Steve DeCourcy. Joining me tonight,
John Hurd.
Diane Mahan.
Leonard Diggins.
James Feeney, Town Manager.
Michael Cunningham, Town Council.
Ashley Marr, Select Board Administrator.
and our fifth member, Mr. Helmuth, will be joining us shortly. He'll be joining us remotely. There he is there. Can you hear us, Mr. Helmuth?
Can you hear me, sir?
Yes, we can. Great.
Thank you, sir.
Tonight's meeting is being conducted in a hybrid format consistent with provisions in state law for remote participation in public meetings. Before we begin, please note the following. This meeting is being conducted in the Select Board chambers and over Zoom. It is being recorded and simultaneously broadcasted on ACMi. People wishing to join the meeting by Zoom may find information on how to do so on the town's website. Both Zoom's participants and persons watching on ACMi can follow the posted agenda materials found on the town's website, specifically the Select Board agendas and minutes page. This happened before the meeting, but I'll say this in case it happens again. If technical difficulties sever the remote connection to one or more members and efforts to reconnect within a reasonable period of time are unsuccessful, the in-person meeting will continue at the discretion of the chair, provided that a quorum of the board is physically present. Zoom participants are encouraged to retain the phone number provided in their confirmation email for a backup audio connection to the meeting. There will be opportunities for public comment at tonight's meeting during the warrant article hearings. If you are attending by Zoom and want to participate, please raise your hand when I ask if any members of the public wish to be heard on a particular article. And finally, because Mr. Helmuth is joining us tonight through Zoom, each vote will be taken by roll call. We have 11 items on our agenda. Let's see how much of the town's business we can get done tonight. And with that, I will go to item 2 for approval, the 250th commemorative public art installation. Katie Lazai, our Economic Development Coordinator, and Cecily Miller, our Public Art Coordinator, will be making the presentation. Good evening to you both.
Hi. Good evening. Thank you for hearing us.
Yeah.
I feel like I'm in the Senate. Seriously. Well, I'm really excited to present this project to you by Neelu Muchala, who is in India right now visiting her mother, who's quite elderly right now, so she's there for a week. But I've been working along with her to manage the many details of this project, so hopefully I'll be able to answer questions. Essentially, I approached Neelu with the idea of doing a timeline so that people would get a sense of the scope of history that's unfolded in Arlington. And I knew she had done a timeline in the past when she was studying art. So, and you might remember she did a wonderful project on the Minuteman Bikeway on the segment closest to the kickstand, where there were opposite words like alone, together, pairs of opposite words that prompted people to think about how they wanted to live their lives, sort of. Or moms to say hot and cold are opposite words to their kids. You know, it could be enjoyed on a variety of levels. And this project also, I think, can be enjoyed on a variety of levels. So the idea is that you'd just be walking down Mass Avenue, you would come across a red, white, or blue square with a date and a word on it, and you would wonder, what is this? And next to it would be the website for Arts Arlington, and you would go to that website, and you would discover that there's a whole project with 25 historic events that have been paired with 25 contemporary stories. You might also remember that Neelu did a project in Menominee Rocks Park that was about COVID, and there she interviewed 50 people about their COVID experience. In this case, she interviewed 25 people or researched organizations to get the story that connected. So this first graphic is just sort of examples of how the squares would actually just be a single square, and they're kind of throughout Arlington, so every neighborhood would have one. And if we look at the next slide, so then the other physical component is these 25 cards. They're double-sided art cards, and they pick up on this theme. So if equal was a word in a square, equal is a word on a card. And the story that she collected, a very brief story, is on the card along with graphics that tell the story visually. So the idea is people are first triggered to find out about this in public space. They'll start seeing the cards in the library, here at Town Hall, and local cafes. And this kind of project will unfold, almost like a jigsaw puzzle. Some of the events have to do with the Revolutionary War, what we're all commemorating, the critical day of the night of the 18th and day of the 19th. But then with the idea that history didn't start then, history didn't end then, there are other things like the founding of the library, the market gardening that was so prevalent in the 19th century. And you'll see that a Revolutionary War hero, for example, is paired with an interview she did with a veteran who served in the Vietnam War on swift boats. So and that's just one example from the 25 stories. So it's a kind of wonderful look at Arlington and its diversity that I think only a local kind of artist, designer, and storyteller could have put together. Tapping into her own network and knowledge of the town, but also doing so much research. I should say that Richard Duffy from the Arlington Historical Society got us started and also vetted the historic moments, read through all of them, issued corrections. So we feel, pretty good about the whole thing. Do you want to add anything to that?
Yeah, so this is one of 3 projects Cecily has championed for public art for the 250th. We used those proposals to apply for a grant through the Mass Office of Travel and Tourism. And so this project we won one of those competitive grants, and so that is funding this project.
Yeah, and we actually also received a grant from the Grants Committee of Arts Arlington, which I have nothing to do with, so they decided on the merits, and they gave us one of the larger grant awards to also support this 250th project. I think that the whole community is taking very seriously the goal to make Arlington visible as this landmark anniversary is celebrated, and people are a lot more familiar with Concord and Lexington. Arlington's a bit of the underdog, so we're really trying to get the word out there and the stories out there.
And there's a couple of pages where we outline these specific locations in East Arlington, the Heights, and the center. Yep, it's there for you. So a lot of them are in front of our small businesses, our community centers, our public spaces. So it's a great way to visually engage and pull the storefronts into the narrative.
Yeah. There's precedent for this. A couple of years ago, I did stenciled haikus on pavement in similar locations, and we vetted all those locations through planning and through this board. And so I hope this will win your support.
Well, thank you both for the presentation. Before we turn to board members, just clarification, assuming the approval is granted, what's the timeline for actually putting the squares out?
We
I know there's a timeline for the history of Arlington,
We
but
want
the
to
actual installation.
we want to hit the ground immediately. As soon as Nilu gets back, we're going to start stenciling.
Okay.
So we want it to be up by April 6th when the kickoff for Arlington 250 is happening at Capitol Square, and we'll start with the Capitol Square squares for that reason. So yeah.
Say, okay, thank you very much. I'll turn to board members. Mr. Diggins?
Sure, thank you, Mr. Chair. I will motion to approve this project and say this is wonderful. I've read a fair amount of the presentation, but I'm looking forward to reading a lot more. Lilu's art really resonates with me. It's dense, but in a way that is rich as opposed to being oppressive. And I guess maybe I'm a little biased because she interviewed me for the COVID project. Part of that was to discuss what it was like running a campaign during that period, because I was running for the first time that year, along with Mrs. Mahan, and it was a contentious year, and then we had the pandemic on top of it, which extended the election season by 2 long
By
months.
forever.
2 long months, and the first panel, though, the first section, I love the range from 14,000 years to 1972. That's ambitious, well, not ambitious, but it's wide-ranging in thought, and I appreciate that. And lastly, a question, will we be able to buy the cards and collect them?
They're free.
Okay, so then. we'll be
We
able to-
have thought about potentially making a pack available for sale, like
Yeah.
all 25 cards for $10. But the con is that then we have to sort of deal with the administration of that. So we're thinking about it maybe more of a treasure hunt where people
Yeah.
need to find them and collect, kind of collect them all. It's sort
Yeah.
of, I don't know. Do you have thoughts about that?
I think both are fine. Of course, when it comes to I would happily buy them. I think they make great gifts, but there's always the balance between, the cost of administrating, and if not, you don't want to lose money by, administering the project. It'd be nice if
Right.
you made some and devoted, it could dedicate it to some cause, so I think there'd be a market for it, but certainly the treasure hunt idea, is engaging, and maybe we can, do that during town day or something, so.
Yeah, definitely.
All right,
I
thank you.
think for sure at the town hall beer garden, we'll have sets.
Okay.
Thank you, Mr. Diggins. Mr. Hurd?
I'll second the motion, and thank you for all the work. This is amazing. Happy to support anything that supports the 250 effort. As you know, we've been working on it for a while, and Katie's been doing a ton of work on that. It's hard to imagine that we're almost there after about 6 or 7 years of planning. But I think this is really, anything that Arlington can do to attract attention to our town is great, and I think this is an amazing way to do it. So thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Hurd. Further? Okay, so on a motion for approval by Mr. Diggins, seconded by Mr. Hurd, Attorney Cunningham?
Mr. Diggins?
Yes.
Mrs. Mahan?
Yes.
Mr. Hurd?
Yes.
Mr. Helmuth?
Yes.
Mr. DeCoursey?
Yes,
5-0 vote.
okay, great.
And
Best of luck.
before I leave, I just do want to commend Katie. She's been an amazing collaborator, and as you know, the Arts Commission is pretty much all volunteer, and of course, the commissioners have been great too, but having Katie and the planning department and their expertise in a kind of niche, a foothold here at Town Hall has really made the difference. We've been able to do projects of bigger scope than previously, including the murals that you've seen. That was also something that the planning department was instrumental in.
Great, well, no, thank you. It's an impressive and an ambitious project, so thank you, Katie, for your work on it, and Ms. Miller, thank you as well. All right, item 3 for approval, the Mayor's Monarch Pledge, and while Ms. Crowder's coming up, the monarch here refers to the monarch butterfly, in case people were wondering. So,
That's
Ms.
true.
Carter, turn it over to you for the
And
presentation.
mayor refers to leadership, no matter what the structure of the town is. So it can be town manager, it can be tribal leader, it can be whatever the structure of the town is.
Great.
Just to clarify that. Yes, Elaine Crowder, thank you for the opportunity to present this. I am a member of the Arlington Mass Invasives Army, but there are a lot of people who are interested in this project. So there's a lot of interest in town. It's a simple project. It's a pledge backed by sort of real actions. The pledge needs to be signed by March 31st, which is why we're presenting it at this time. And you just simply take at least 3 actions. The pledge acknowledges the critical role of towns and cities in building and maintaining habitat that supports monarch butterflies, in particular, which are endangered. But in the process, it also supports other butterflies and other life, including insects, birds, wildlife. The pledge, I won't repeat it, I provided it to you, but it ends with this. When mayors speak up and take a stand, our communities notice. Therefore, we hereby commit to help restore habitat for the monarch and encourage our residents to do the same, so that these magnificent butterflies will once again flourish across the continent. And it's an initiative that really gains power by encouraging collaboration across town community groups. So, for example, and it also dovetails with town actions the town is already taking, so there's really little extra work, and it's supportive of the current land management and open space plans. So I spoke with Bill Copperthorne to learn a little bit more about the specific plants that they're planting, that they have planted in East Arlington in the rain gardens, and butterfly milkweed. It supports monarchs was one of the plantings there. So there are two examples I'll just highlight for you of the actions. Let's take the bioswales in East Arlington. They planted 3 years ago, beautiful when first planted. They do need a little maintenance. So this is the type of thing that could be done actually very inexpensively, working with gardeners in town who are already growing some native plant material that could be placed in there. So there could be replacement of the monarch supporting butterfly, milkweed, and other nectar-supporting plants in those bioswales. And secondly, something that you approved, the Zero Lancaster removal of black swallowwort. Black swallowwort happens to kill monarch butterfly caterpillars. So that is an action that needs repeating this year. It's sort of an ongoing process. And that, again, would qualify. So I'll stop here. I also did talk with people in Watertown. They've been doing this for about 3 years. So if you have any questions, I got some operational information. Thanks.
Great.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. And from your email, you also indicated that you had talked to Mr. Morgan, our environmental planner and
Yes.
conservation agent. That came through Mr. Feeney as well to be put on the agenda. So with that, I'll turn to board members. Mrs. Mahan?
I would enthusiastically move approval and thank Ms. Crowder and others for this, embarking on this project, years-long project, moving forward. And I understand there's at least 3 action plans that are suggested, and having David Morgan from the planning department, especially with incorporating it into the town's master plan, as well as interfacing with the Department of Public Works on plantings. And I know David's not here right now, but I've been so impressed with so many things that he's done on this project, on obtaining Community Preservation Act grant funding to catalog town trees and town areas. So we know what's out there, as well as you got a state grant recently for Roots for Environmental Justice Communities in Arlington, which would be Roots to School and other areas. So, and I want to thank you, Ms. Crowder Lane, for hanging in there and really educating me on starting with the Zero Lancaster project, which I knew nothing about, as well as the native flora, what's good and what's not so good. And your passion for it makes me have passion for it.
Great.
Because I feel like I'm actually understanding what you're saying and learning, and you'll be a great advocate for this. So once again, I'd like to move approval.
Thank you, Mrs. Mahan.
Second.
Thank you, Mr. Hurd. Any further?
Yeah, I have,
Mr. Diggins?
yeah, I have some questions. So whose deadline is this? Through you,
It's
Mr.
the
Chair.
National Wildlife Federation's deadline
I got
for
it.
this coming year. So they start their initiative in March 31st in time to begin the plantings.
All right.
And the town then, in collaboration with community groups that are already involved in gardening and planting in town, would work on those actions and through about, and then there's a final sort of reporting
Gotcha.
in December.
Got it. So then this will be an annual thing?
It's everything's voluntary. Yes, you can re-up every year. Watertown has done that. Somerville has done that. Other towns have done that.
Okay, thank you. So have you done any work with Sustainable Arlington? Because I know that they're very interested in pollinators.
Yes, Brucey is enthusiastic about it, but could not be here tonight. She might be on, I don't know whether she's on the,
The Zoom.
or not,
Yeah.
Zoom or not, but she couldn't be here in person.
Okay. As Mrs. Mahan has pointed out, and you did too, that, we're doing a lot of work along these lines. We're doing a lot of work along these lines anyways, and I've actually been in conversation with David Morgan because another resident is very interested in deep paving, and we're not going to bring that before the board at least anytime soon, as something to push. If anything, David Morgan will tell the resident that I'm working with. I hesitate to use the word working with. He cares about overnight parking in the context, of depaving so as to do wastewater management. And I think this has a nice nexus, to providing more space, for us to grow things, to help with pollinators, and actually during the pandemic, we had created these neighborhood pods that were based on, some work that was done in Jamaica Plain and Somerville, and that kind of went by the wayside. It's a long story. I'm kind of sad that it did because I thought that we had the potential to encourage the community to do more gardening, for helping with pollinators and just to just increase the general sustainability, and the resilience of the community, because I think a community that gardens together, gets to know each other, can feed each other, do flowers, and help the environment. I'll tell you, my feelings about these pledges, are similar to my feelings about resolutions. And when we're doing the work already, there's just something about it that rubs me the wrong way. And I understand the motive, and it's a laudable motive, but we are doing the work, and I know that there's more behind this, I would like to see the more behind it, and then I would like to see some evidence that we have achieved something, from whatever time period to the other time period, so.
And if you have the time, I don't want to take your time.
Yeah.
But I do have some more information about how Watertown does that, or I could take it offline and talk with you about that.
Yeah,
Whichever way the board
Probably
prefers.
follow up
Yeah.
offline.
Yeah.
And we were aware that Watertown has taken the pledge, and we appreciate the materials. I don't mean to take your time, Mr. Diggins.
So no, that's all I would say. So you kind of know how I'm feeling about this, so that's all, that's it, thank you.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Diggins. And I'll just say thank you for the presentation and for the resources. And I will note on the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service, there's a lot of information on there as well about saving the monarch butterfly and it potentially being added as an endangered species. So it is timely for the pledge. So on a motion for approval by Mrs. Mahan, seconded by Mr. Hurd, Attorney Cunningham?
Mr. Diggins?
Abstain.
Mrs. Mahan?
Yes.
Mr. Hurd?
Yes.
Mr. Helmuth?
Yes.
Mr. DeCoursey?
Yes.
4-0, 1 abstention.
Great, thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Next is our consent agenda. Item 4, these are all renewals, outdoor dining and sidewalk cafe applications. There's a series of just sidewalk cafes, a few parklets, which are in parking spaces, and one category called both sidewalk cafe and in parking space. Item 5 is a request for a special one-day beer and wine license on March 28, 2025 at Robbins Memorial Town Hall for Dame Delicious 2025. Item 6 is a request for a special one-day beer and wine license on April 5th, 2025 at High Rock Church for a private event. Board members?
Move approval.
Second.
Okay, any comments, questions?
Yeah, I had.
Diggins?
Sorry, thank you, I'm trying to bring up my notes. So on the sidewalk cafes, I noticed that Donut Villa and Cafe Nero, aren't there? Are they special,
No, I think there was no application that was submitted by either one, and I know in the case of Dona Villa, Ms. Maher, you can correct me, but I think they were notified that they hadn't sent that thing and chose not to.
That's correct.
Okay, all right, so those two, again, and this is interesting because they have a significant part of the area blocked off that you can't even access during the wintertime when they don't have anyone out there, so that's interesting, And on the wedding, I noticed that Officer Rateau had said that this was contingent upon the reception of parking and traffic management plan for their 175 guests. So, did we get that?
Ms. Maher? Yeah, and we can make it conditioned on that too, as part of the vote.
Yeah, because that's pretty big. And also, I'm kind of interested in the plan, because, that's a lot to manage, and I'm kind of interested in seeing how we manage it.
They did this afternoon email Britton that they were going to mostly be carpooling.
Okay.
A number of guests are from around the surrounding area and family. They'll be utilizing Uber and Lyft as well. So after speaking with Corey Rateau, it seemed as though the plan for parking wasn't as much of an issue as it originally had thought to be.
All right,
So
that
let's
works.
follow up on that. And just one point of clarification on Trist, because of its location, that's conditioned, there's a couple of events that take place on Mass Ave, Town Day and the 250th, and so that's going to be conditioned on at least those two dates, them removing the park lot. So just so that's clear with them, not so much for us internally. Okay, so on a motion for approval by Mr. Hurd, seconded by Mrs. Mahan, Attorney Cunningham.
Mr. Diggins?
Yes.
Mrs. Mahan?
Yes.
Mr. Hurd?
Yes.
Mr. Helmuth?
Yes.
Mr. DeCoursey?
Yes.
5-0 vote.
Thank you. Item 7, appointment for the Board of Registrar of Voters, and this appointment is let me just read just a second. The Board of Registrars consists of 3 members who represent the 2 leading political parties of the town. However, no more than 2 members may be from the same party. There was an opening on the Board of Registrars, or vacancy that was created from the Republican Party. We received a letter from Donna Rose Russian, the chair of the Arlington Republican Town Committee, and as consistent with state law, there were 3 names that were submitted to us. The 3 names were Nicole Belizaire Samarco, Paul Chadigian, and Vincent Framani. And Ms. Belizaire Samarco is here with us tonight. Are the other 2?
The other 2 have withdrawn their names
Okay.
from consideration.
Okay, and so the way this works, just by background, we've done this a few times. The Republican, or it could be the Democratic Town Committee, if there's an opening, submits 3 names. From those 3 names, we have a vote on the board. So I would invite Ms. Belizaire Samarco to come up to the microphone. Thank you for joining us tonight, and we had received the materials that you submitted expressing your interest, but if you could just tell us a little bit about why you're interested in serving on the Board of Registrars.
The reason why I'm interested to be on the board is that I feel that I could be a valuable asset to the office, the registrar office, and as well as I feel that I have the skill, to help, and I've been a public servant for 40 years or so. I feel that I can contribute to the town, depending on the initiative duty is for the actual,
Right.
what I'm serving for.
Great, and thank you for the detailed letter with the laying out your interests as well. I'll turn to board members. Mrs. Mahan?
I would like to nominate and move approval of Nicole Belizaire Samarco.
Belizaire Samarco, yes.
And thank her in advance for finding another way to give back to the great community of Arlington that we love. She's always been behind the scenes assisting her husband Dave Samaco on Town Day. He's been part of our center stage for a long, long time, and as I was saying earlier to others, and we all know that, you know, when someone is able to take some time from their family and give back to the community, you know, we thank them and we thank the family, because it really is a family commitment, and I'm very grateful that you're stepping up in another way to volunteer, especially with Amari, your new grandson. We were talking, trading grandparent stories earlier. So I'd like to move approval.
Thank you, Mrs. Mahan.
Second.
Thank you, Mr. Hurd. Any further questions, comments? Okay, on a motion for approval by Mrs. Mahan, seconded by Mr. Hurd. Attorney Cunningham?
Mr. Diggins?
Yes.
Mrs. Mahan?
Yes.
Mr. Hurd?
Yes.
Mr. Helmuth?
Yes.
Mr. DeCoursey?
Yes.
5-0 vote.
Okay, congratulations, and thank you for your willingness to serve on the Board of Registrars.
It's a pleasure. Thank you.
Good to see you.
Moving on to traffic rules and orders and other business. Item 8 is a discussion and approval, alcohol licenses, seating capacity minimums. And I believe Ms. Lasai is going to be joining us again for this discussion, so welcome back.
Thank you, I missed you all. Thank you, Mr. Chairman and the board, for taking this matter up for discussion today. I'm here to voice my support for making changes to the Office of the Select Board's alcohol licenses and regulations pertaining to seating capacity minimums regarding the consumption of alcoholic beverages on premise. It's known that running a business establishment is a financially challenging and stressful endeavor. At food establishments, alcohol provides an additional source of revenue with a much greater profit margin than that of food. Over the last few years especially, the restaurant industry has faced numerous barriers to overcome. Profit margins provided by serving alcohol can bolster an establishment's fiscal health and support continued operations. To raise revenue, several of our cafes have considered moving to a day cafe evening bar model. I've been reached out to other businesses like a cooking school who would want to offer wine while patrons cook. Having lower barriers to licenses makes setting up shop in Arlington more appealing. All the while considering the high rent and very small spaces we have to offer in town. Over the last decade, really, municipalities in Greater Boston have been reevaluating their alcohol policies, adding outdoor dining provisions and decreasing seat capacities, as well as increasing the overall number of licenses made available for prospective or existing businesses. By decreasing our seating capacity and seeking a few additional licenses, I think we can make it at least a little bit easier for our businesses to succeed.
Thank you very much. And just further to follow up too, you'll remember this was a discussion that we had in our joint meeting with the redevelopment board. There were 3 things related to alcohol licenses. One had to do with the food requirement, which we removed as part of our policies. It used to be if you had 2 drinks, you had to order food. And the second and third thing that the redevelopment board had raised with us was the seating minimums. We have 19 for wine and malt and 50 for all alcohol. I had a meeting recently with Mr. Feeney, Attorney Cunningham, Ms. Marr, and we discussed some of these issues. So I was going to turn over to Mr. Feeney maybe just to summarize that a little bit and talk a little bit about some of the parameters that we had discussed.
Sure. Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you for alluding to the joint meeting that the Select Board had with the redevelopment board. And then as a subsequent follow-up, this board may recall that at your January 13th meeting, we took the first step to make a policy change, and that was respect to the service of food after 2 drinks, and the board made that policy change at that time. And we discussed the consideration of the different seating minimums that exist, and the board provided some preliminary feedback at that time. So through the Department of Planning and Community Development and through the Office of the Select Board, we researched both our comparable communities that we know as the Town Manager 12 that we use for many of our community-to-community comparisons, and we also looked at neighboring communities as well, as that speaks to sort of the regional business market. And then we provided a bit of legislative history for all of the alcohol votes that have been taken either by this board and then followed through town meeting and subsequently by the voters via a ballot initiative. So basically, what's before the board this evening is the consideration of changing the seating minimums for each of the types of on-premise consumption licensures, and those include the wine and malt seating minimum, as the chair noted, is currently at 19 seats, and the all-alcohol seating minimum, which is currently at 50 seats. With regard to the wine and malt seating minimum, the recommendation through the Department of Planning and Community Development and the Office of the Board of Select Board is for this board to consider lowering that seating minimum to 0 for wine and malt licenses. And then the recommendation for this board to consider for all alcohol seating minimums is less clear. We did not, as a group, could not sort of arbitrarily arrive at a specific number, but the sense was clear that the board should consider reducing the seating minimum. So in the materials prepared by the Office of the Select Board, we took the strategy of preparing a chart whereby the board could consider what seating reduction percentage they may be comfortable with and what the corresponding resulting number of seats might be. And again, that provides the board to determine what their comfort level is if the board wishes to come to an agreement on a reduction this evening. And then, of course, the board could consider over time, as experience is gained with a new seating minimum, continuing to reduce it incrementally over time. So that is why that strategy was presented to the board this evening, because there was not necessarily a formulaic way to arrive at, the best number of seats for an all-alcohol establishment in Arlington is X. So we thought, taking it from the top, we could pursue, some level of reduction based on the board's collective comfort level. Thank you.
Great. Thank you, Mr. Feeney. Turn to board members now. Mr. Diggins?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So I'm fine with taking the wine and malt to 0, and I agree with the incremental approach, especially since any number would be arbitrary. So my incremental approach would be to reduce it by a half. So bring it from 50 to 25. And then assess. At whatever period of time we think would be appropriate, be a year, whatever, and then, depending on how things go, we either stabilize, or change up or down, but if things were fine, then maybe take it down another half, but I'm not gonna make a motion on that, it's just a suggestion. I certainly want to hear how the people feel before pushing anything hard,
Question, Mr. Mahan? May I turn to
I
Mr. Hurd?
just, because he's on my bad side.
Yeah, I'm
I
sorry.
heard, I'm sorry. I heard that 19 for beer and wine to 0.
Yeah.
But what was the second thing you
Oh,
said? And
yeah.
Mr. Hurd's ahead of me.
Yeah, sure. So the second thing was that we take the all alcohol from 50 to 25. So essentially cutting it in half, that would be, the way we would go forward, possibly reducing by another half. If we assess in a year that it's fine, or whatever. I'm not gonna commit a future board to
Thank you. I
any
didn't hear the
number, but just thinking like my general approach to it, but that's it. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Diggins. Mr. Hurd?
Yeah, I'm happy to support reducing the wine and malt to 0. I think, we've had this discussion a few times, and at the end of the day, it's on the establishment to comply with all the rules and regulations of safe alcohol service. I like where we're starting here with the 50%. My only concern with just going to 50, I think 50 is a good round incremental number, but if we look at the materials, that only puts 4 of existing businesses, it only makes it available to 4, and it's a whole lot in the teens and, 20s, 20, a lot at 20, 21, 22, 28. Then there's, again, 4 that would now be available for those licenses. And I think if the idea is that we're trying to open it up, then it might be wise to kind of take a look at that number and match it up. Not so much with the percentage, but I think as, we look at some of these businesses that, I don't think Dunkin's wants it, but, there could be some businesses in the teens here. And I think what Mr. Feeney had said before, there were some businesses that might want one specific drink, right, like sake, that requires a full license that they can't do, but it might be a smaller establishment. You know, I'm just sort of looking in here at the list of going as low as like 15, because I see, you know, to pick out like and I don't know that any of these establishments would want it, or if there is some, I'm certainly could be convinced if there's some public policy reason to not go that low for a full alcohol license, but I think it gives a lot more flexibility. You know, if you go to 15, now there's about 15 more businesses that can avail themselves to the license if it would fit their business model.
Thank you, Mr. Hurd. Before I turn to other members, just to comment on that, and this was part of the balancing at the meeting, is the wine, the wine and malt, we have an unlimited number of licenses. Right now, we only have 20 for all alcohol, and so we've issued 13.
Yep.
And so there was a little bit of a concern that if we come too low on that, we're going to exhaust all of our licenses. And we may want to try to get more licenses down the road, but I think that was a little bit of the attempt. Certainly, there were, at the meeting, the recommendation was going to bring that down. There was some concern expressed that if we went into the teens, we may exhaust all of the licenses. So even though some of these establishments may want to go to all alcohol, I think we wanted to leave a few licenses until we increase that.
Well, if we went to 21.
Yeah.
Or.
It's all open
I mean,
for
20
discussion. No,
I
absolutely.
mean, if it was 20, it'd be 1, 2, 3, 4. I mean, it's around like 10 to 12 more businesses that, and again, I mean, Starbucks
Yeah.
doesn't want, I'm sure Dunkin's doesn't want it. So you could kind of whittle down that list a little bit more. So I think maybe then 20 is a little more reasonable of the number, because it, you know, will give, and if we exhaust our licenses, then maybe we could use that as an opportunity to go out and ask for more, so.
Yeah, okay, yeah, and some of that will be wine and malt licensees who may want to upgrade to all alcohol, to say upgrade, expand. Okay, any other comments?
Did you have any? No.
I just wanted to clarify that point, but I have a couple, but
So I think what I'm hearing from Mr. Diggins is 19 to go to 0, 50 to possibly 25, and now for Mr. Hurd, agreement with the 19 to 0 for wine, beer and wine, and 50, are you now saying, you know, perhaps, did you say 20?
I mean, I would, I think, take it to 20.
20?
Just looking at the list,
Yeah.
I think I would rather have, you know, if there's demand for it, meet the demand, than say, all right, sorry, you're still just outside that scope of what we need for seating.
And I would say, I would be, just where we're going, you can always change your mind in the conversation, and we haven't heard from the chair yet, that 15 I was concerned about, 20 I think addresses the concern that the chair stated and that we discussed with the town manager and with the redevelopment board, but I'll wait, I won't make a motion yet, or anyone else, I'll wait to hear what you have to say.
and did you say you're comfortable with 20 or?
I did.
Okay, yeah,
15,
yeah.
I'm.
I hear, okay. Yeah, so I think it's a good idea to bring this down from 50. I'm fine with 20. I just didn't want to, for me personally, I didn't think we should go into the teens for all alcohol, and whether it was 20, 25, or 30, I could be convinced of any of those numbers, and if that's what the consensus is that's developing, I'm fine with that.
And I don't know if Mr.
Yeah,
Helmut.
Mr. Helmuth?
Yeah, I'm fine with that as well.
Thank you. Okay, so we've had a good discussion, but no motions yet, so. Mrs. Mahan?
I could make a motion to amend the select board, is it alcohol policy? I'm trying to get to the page. For the seating minimums for wine and malt from 19 to 0, and the seating minimums for all alcohol from 50 to 20.
I'll second the motion, and I'll just say, Mr. DeCoursey, we can reconvene our subcommittee to follow up with the businesses, just to see if it's
We
working.
need to expand that subcommittee now, there's more work to be done. Yeah, exactly.
Maybe the manager might have to go also, but anyways.
Okay, thank you, Ms. Mahan. So on a motion by Mrs. Mahan, seconded by Mr. Hurd, to reduce the wine and malt to 0 and the all alcohol to 20, Attorney Cunningham.
Mr. Diggins?
Yes.
Mrs. Mahan?
Yes.
Mr. Hurd?
Yes.
Mr. Helmuth?
Yes.
Mr. DeCoursey?
Yes.
5-0 vote.
Great, thank you
Thank
for the
you.
presentation. Okay, item 9, discussion and approval overnight parking pilot. And before I turn it to Mr. Diggins, as we stand right now, the overnight parking pilot expires on June 30th, 2025. So Mr. Diggins had requested that we put this on an agenda a few meetings ago, timely because we need to address this just to give people notice in terms of what we're going to do. So with that, I'll turn it over to Mr. Diggins.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chair. I mean, Ms. Mar, could you maybe bring up that PDF that I sent? And it's not a big deal. I mean, do my colleagues, are you able to see it? I mean, that we sent, so essentially, we at the end of, excuse me? Okay, no problem. When we ended the last pilot back in June of last year, we hadn't had a snow emergency, and so we decided to, let's extend it for another year in hopes that we would have a snow emergency, and I think we had 2 this year. And on top of that, and it's not something that we want, but we also had a situation where, in hindsight, we felt that there should have been, a third snow emergency. So that got us to see, how, things would work in a situation, suboptimal situation. And so my understanding is that, there weren't, any complaints that were linked, to the overnight parking. The complaints that we got in the case where we had, in hindsight, would have had a snow emergency, well, that was just, the people were blocked in, whether they had a permit or not, and so just briefly looking at the statistics, and we shouldn't really make too much of this because the denominators are pretty small, pretty low, but we had a 10% increase, in the from the first pilot to the second pilot, went from 70 to 76, so roughly 10%. And then from the second pilot to now, we went from 76 to 93, so that's roughly 20%. It's not clear what the trend is, from these 3 numbers. Is it going to be, 30% the next number, or is it going to be 40%? Is it linear or is it, exponential? We don't know, but it seems to be that there is increasing demand, at the current price point. Interestingly, too, there seems to be a bit of a balancing now between the east and the non-east precincts. And so we already though, just because the precincts, the east is just 7 precincts, and non or 14. Clearly, there's more demand, per unit area, in the east, so there's certainly, I think that's not surprising, and just kind of looking at the numbers in the chart, I kind of saw that precinct 3, kind of doubled, from the first one to the third one, precinct 9 maintained 0, for all 3, so there's some interesting things in there, but like I said, the numbers are so small, it's hard to make anything out of it, so I'll turn it to Mr. Feeney to give some insights or some observations that he heard regarding the snow emergency, if he's okay.
Mr. Feeney?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you, Mr. Diggins. Not a whole lot to add, as I think you alluded to one of the situations that we ran into with not calling a snow emergency based on the timing and predicted forecast with an event that ultimately then led to some hard freezing around a number of vehicles that had been parked in the roadway overnight. That really did negatively impact our snow removal operations for that particular event. But, whether or not that was exacerbated by the issuance of these overnight parking permits or not, is not entirely clear, because when you do not call a parking ban, there is additional overnight parking via nightly waiver or through the fact that folks can park during the overnight hours, just not for an extended period of time. So I think were this, pilot to continue, and, we're continuing to issue permits for upwards of 100 vehicles to be on the road, and if that number continued to grow, I think operationally, we would probably consider being more firm with calling snow emergency parking bans, so that whether there's overnight parking permits being issued or not, we are getting vehicles off the roadway if we think we're going to be engaging in any degree of snow removal operations, just to make sure we can get the roads done quickly, efficiently, and get them, as wide as possible, and then lift the ban as quickly as possible.
So continuing, in the previous reports, I had ticketing information and complaint information, but in both cases, the chief had told me, and Officer Rateau had told her that he wasn't, there's no record or very poor records as to whether the ticketing that's happening overnight is due to complaints. So we were advised not to really put much stake in the ticketing data. So I didn't include it in this last spreadsheet that I supplied. But I'm not getting any warnings from the chief not to make this permanent. And so the whole point of this pilot/trial really was to see if anything broke, more so than to try to do a real scientific study, because it would take a complex experimental design over a long period of time, to really tease out whether or not we were affecting the demand, and helping the people that we want to help by allowing for more overnight parking. Some issues that if we do make this permanent, we will have to work through, is where the stickers are placed on the car, or the vehicle. We heard from Officer Rateau that can affect the ability for the law enforcement to detect and determine whether a vehicle has a sticker. And some people still aren't aware of the program, so they will call in to complain about a vehicle. But making residents aware of things is something that we struggle with for just about everything. So we'll just add that to the things that we try to make clear to folks. And another issue is where people can park, and there are two elements to this. We have some developments, where people in those developments want to take advantage of overnight parking, but we have limited where they can park, and that is something that we need to work through, and that's going to be part of the potential motion that I make in terms of reaching out to other departments in town to find out how our overall parking policy should function, because I think that will factor into how much we ultimately want to charge for the permits. I'm going to recommend that we keep the price point as it is. That's a loose recommendation now. I might want to return back to Mr. Feeney or someone else on that, and maybe even to Attorney Cunningham, because I put in requests to find out how much we can really charge for tickets for overnight parking, because it is that balance, I think, that will help some people determine whether or not they want to get the permit. Because right now, I think with the parking tickets, at $25, you can play the odds, and not do the permit. We tied the permit cost to the current cost that we have for residents when they want to park in a lot, and it's $1 a day, and so we figured that would be a nice, since we already had that policy, do the same for overnight parking. But we can change things. It's really up to us. But I'll recommend keeping it there, and then determining whether or not we want to change the fines and see what we can do about enforcement. I'm just going to quickly read through my notes to see if there's something else that. Nope. So that's it. I am prepared to make a motion, but I'll wait and listen to my colleagues before proposing something. So that's it, thank you.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Diggins. I'm almost thinking if you want to make the motion just for discussion, maybe that will help frame the discussion.
Sure, okay, fine. So I'd like to make the motion that we make the overnight parking program that we have permanent, and that we keep the price point at the current price point, but that we also reach out to all the departments to determine how our overall parking policy affects the operations of the town and our goals. The goals specifically being housing, transportation, sustainability.
Okay, great.
It's a complex motion.
Okay, and again, for discussion, do I have a second?
Second.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Hurd. Okay, and I'll turn to other members. Any comments? Mr. Hurd?
Very wary about opening the discussion about overnight parking again. No, I think it's been very successful the way. It took us a long time to formulate the pilot parameters, but I think what we put together, it worked. I don't think that I've heard there were any massive issues or major problems that were caused by it. And, I think we set the number of permits to roughly equal what is needed. So I think continuing on with the program as is good. I know some people have used it and they really enjoy it. So I think it's helpful for town residents that need it.
Thank you, Mr. Hurd. Mrs. Mahan?
And I'm also in agreement to making the overnight parking permanent, which also includes, to my understanding, the original reason that we went down this route, trying not to say road avenue or something, which is people who were, especially on fixed incomes, we're saying it's a financial hardship, and, we're still going to have that part of it where, and is it the treasurer's office, that if, the original discussion that we embarked on, which got me to an open mind of this, is, people who, mostly renters or people on fixed incomes, and, it is another financial issue that they have to deal with. But we do have a process in place that those people can come in. And is it the treasurer's office or the select board office that receives those requests and then grants permission if it is a financial hardship, that we waive or some or all of the parking fee?
Ms. Maher?
That would be our office, Mrs. Mahan. We are in charge of all exemptions, whether it's financial or medical exemptions.
Okay, so then, obviously, that still will be included. And at whatever outreach that we do about the overnight parking, if we can continue or maybe add that on as another thing, I think that really, because to me, that was not that it wasn't for anybody else, but that was really me starting to consider this, as well as with the caveat of whatever comes out of the MBTA overlay plans and projects in the future, as well as our colleagues on the redevelopment board are having discussions. They have the AMP Up Arlington Master Plan process starting the first week of April. One of the things is discussion about parking. So this is something that could change in the future, but I will be supporting the motion. Thank you.
Thank you, Mrs. Mahan. Mr. Helmuth?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'll vote for the motion. I had hoped when we did this that we would have been able to do better data collection. I understand that the denominators are small, but I do worry that we maybe haven't looked in the right places for difficulties, and we've been kind of relying on general impressions from just about everybody, from what I can hear. I think there is some validity to that. If there were big problems, loud problems, we'd heard about it. I do think that the operational part of this has gone smoothly. I'm satisfied, with that. And I do like helping the small number of people that we're helping. I think that's really all to the good. I'll vote for this, but I think I want to be clear with my colleagues that we have an understanding of what this means. that for me, I would expect that any changes to the program would still go back to the vote of this board, whether we are raising the number of permits, whether changing the price, whether changing where you can park. I personally want to be very careful about how we proceed because I'm mindful that it's a difficult, there's understandable reluctance to sort of revisit on a townwide level the question of overnight parking because I think there is no townwide consensus about it. So we have to try to split the difference and find a middle ground. I think this policy does that, and I'm glad that we've done it. But I think that we should be very mindful if there's a demand to do more of these, that we really stay in touch with the neighborhoods, especially in East Arlington, who really did have some understandable concerns with their narrow streets and their high level of resident density about what would happen if their streets became overnight parked, all the time. So I think we just need to stay in touch with them and really make sure that if we're going to make changes that would result in a higher number of permits, that we listen really hard and we make real outreach to invite that feedback, honestly. I think for this level of permits, I was tempted to say, I don't really want to vote that we go remote unless we were to send out a big public notice and have a public hearing. I think that would be overkill for this. But I do think going forward, I hope that we can be considered in how we evolve the program and make sure that we're not just that we are looking where we need to look for potential downfalls and pitfalls as we inch forward. So thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Mr. Helmuth, and just a few comments. I support this motion as well to make this permanent, and for the people, who come into the select board office looking for an overnight parking permit, they've been very happy to have that opportunity and to participate in the program, and that was one of the things that we were concerned about, and again, a lot of it's anecdotal in terms of what we're hearing for feedback, but I haven't heard a whole lot, and again, we'll have to keep reaching out and hearing from people if there are issues that arise, but I think this was a need for the 90 or 100 people across town who really wanted a different option, and it's worked out well for them, and I'm happy to support making it permanent, and also helps them with planning, because we're doing it 6 months to a year at a time. Now there might be some people who say, okay, I'll join the program because I don't have to give up parking somewhere else. I know this is going to continue. So with that, unless there's any other discussion, Mr. Diggins?
So I just want to add, I didn't put in the motion that we are going to keep the number of permits at the current level, which is?
125.
Okay, so that gives us, and 25% more, then we have permits out now, and part of the reason for the motion that says that we are going to reach out to departments, is to set the stage, for us having a conversation with the community about parking in general, and so that will also include revisit the overnight parking with the community, because I love doing the community forums, and so I look for more opportunities to talk with the community about parking. But as I said, we'll do that with the understanding of how the departments feel about what we currently have and what we can do to make the operations better and the accomplishment of our goals easier. Thank you.
Great. Thank you, Mr. Diggins. Mrs. Mahan?
Just one question, because I'm not pulling it up in my mind. On the application for overnight parking, is there a question that asks for just a brief description of what the need is?
Ms.
We
Mahan?
do ask for the reason. It's not a required field. So we do have some of that information available.
So I would say, taking into mind all my colleagues' remarks, as well as Mr. Helmuth, if we were going to make any drastic changes moving forward, just purely on increasing the number, I would like to find some way that we can capture the data, because for me, I was a no on this and became a yes because of the financial hardship issue. And I can tell you that the few times that I've been in the office, which the past 3 months I haven't been in as much, maybe once or twice a month, but I'm usually in more. But when I have been in there and people have come in, I haven't heard a single, I need this because I'm on a fixed income, I'm a renter, I have nowhere else to park. I've heard it's the third, fourth, fifth car And I've heard it's the second, third, fourth car. There is a driveway, but then we have to do the driveway shuffle, so it's better to put it out on the street. If we were going to expand that, to me, that's really not a valid reason. So I'm hoping there are actually some people, which is why we went down this road, which is to not penalize them where they live, how much they pay, and what they can afford. So I would just say going forward, along with any public forums that we have, if there's some way that we can legally ask and capture that data, that would be really important to me. But
thank
I'm
you,
still in
Mrs.
favor of voting for this.
Yeah, and my memory is when we did the initial pilot, we were asking the question because we wanted to know what the various reasons were. It wasn't a criteria for receiving the permit, but it's just helpful for our overall knowledge. Okay. And in response, Mr. Diggins really responded to it, to Mr. Helmut's concern. All of what we're talking about, the amount that's paid, the number of permits, that is all part of our policy. So that would come back to the board in the future. So on a motion for, by Mr. Diggins to make the overnight parking permanent, to keep the price point, and to reach out to departments on parking policy and how that relates to overnight parking, that motion was seconded by Mr. Hurd. Attorney Cunningham.
Mr. Diggins?
Yes.
Mrs. Mahan?
Yes.
Mr. Hurd?
Yes.
Mr. Helmuth?
Yes.
Mr. DeCoursey?
Yes.
5-0 vote.
Thank you, Attorney Cunningham. And so I'm going to call item 10, and then I have an announcement to make on that. So item 10 is for approval, notice of activity and use limitation, otherwise known as an AUL, and grant of easement for Arlington High School portion of the 51 Grove Street site. I am going to turn this discussion over to Mrs. Mahan. One of the industrial parties is National Grid, and I do legal work for National Grid, nothing related to this, but for that reason, I'm recusing myself.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'm wait till he. And I would, on this discussion, like to start with our town manager, Mr. Feeney.
Thank you, Mrs. Mahan. I just wanted to take a moment to introduce Tom Fiore. Tom is been serving as the town's environmental counsel, third party on this matter since approximately 2011. So he worked with Juliana Rice on this, Doug Heim on this, and now town counsel Cunningham on this matter. So I'll turn it over to Tom to walk us through what's before the board this evening.
Thank you, Jim. I believe this 2022, I gave you a brief update on this matter, but we've finally reached a major milestone, which is why we're here tonight. Just some background. In 1992, there was gasoline contamination discovered at the DPW yard that was attributed to some old underground storage tanks. In the course of performing the investigation into the release and where it went, what needed to be done to address it, other contamination was found relating to other historical uses of that, of that property and the area around the present DPW yard. There used to be a manufactured gas plant on Grove Street there, and so there were wastes attributed to the MGP facility also found there. At one point, and this is amazing, it's, you know, harkens back to a different era, there was another business there that chrome-plated saw blades, and that business generated chromium waste, which was also found on the DPW yard property and also on what is now the high school property. So for more than 20 years now, the town has been working with the successor to the MGP plant, which is National Grid, and the successor to this saw blade chroming business, which is Honeywell, to address the contamination associated with all those former operations. And in 2001, a settlement agreement was reached between the town and the so-called industrial parties over how this situation was going to be addressed, how the town, Honeywell, or the town and all the industrial parties were all liable to the state under Chapter 21E, And they all needed to find a way to come together to address their collective liabilities. And that was the 2001 settlement. And that 2001 settlement spelled out the roles of the various parties, what the town's obligations were, what the industrial party's obligations were. It also established the regulatory endpoints that needed to be achieved with the DPW yard and with the high school property. And under the settlement, the industrial parties took the lead on completing the investigation and remediation work that was required. And I have two representatives of the industrial parties with me tonight who I'll bring up afterwards if there are any questions. Tor Helgeson is the industrial party's project manager. In that role, he oversees and coordinates all the activities that fall under the obligations of the industrial parties. And with him is Chuck Mayette, who is a licensed site professional or an LSP. And in Massachusetts, we have this privatized program of site investigation and cleanup where instead of a consultant preparing a report, submitting it to DEP, waiting for DEP to get somebody to read it, either approve it or send back questions, and then, you know, you go on to the next stage and the same process of command and control over and over again, which was traditionally how environmental remediation worked. In Massachusetts, we have a privatized plan where the responsible parties hire an LSP who's licensed by the state to conduct the investigation and the cleanup. And at the end of it, he puts his stamp, just like an engineer would stamp a set of plans. He or she stamps it and says, okay, this work complies with the requirements of the state under Chapter 21E in the MCP, subject always to audit by the state, by the DEP. In connection, under the terms of the settlement agreement, the parties also agreed to execute and record activity and use limitations and grants of easement with respect to the properties that they owned. So National Grid owned a piece of property that was down the street next to the DPW yard. They recorded an AUL on that property. In 2018, the DPW yard portion of the site had an AUL and grant recorded after approval by the town, by this board. Just again, sort of briefly as background, if I could read sort of what DEP puts on its website in terms of what an AUL is. An AUL is a document recorded at the Registry of Deeds to provide notice to current and future property owners and other interested parties of uses or activities that may or may not be appropriate at a property where contamination remains in the environment. An AUL provides information about, 1, the nature and location of contamination remaining on a property, 2, the appropriateness of certain uses and activities, and 3, a property owner's obligations to ensure that the requirements of the AUL continue to be met. So we're here tonight to present and seek approval for the AUL relating to the portion of the site where the high school is now located. There are a series of engineered barriers and direct contact barriers on the property that are sort of central to preserving the regulatory endpoint, which is called a condition of no significant risk. And the AUL sets out inspection and maintenance procedures to maintain the long-term integrity of the barriers. And the town and the industrial parties have been observing the terms of the AUL since those barriers were first put in place back in 2007. So in a sense, the AUL formalizes and memorializes what has been going on for almost 20 years. The AUL also, as I mentioned when I was quoting the DEP's definition, also identifies activities both consistent and inconsistent with maintaining this condition of no significant risk. And the Form 1075, what we call the AUL, is in your materials. But I'll just say that as the AUL is drafted, the activities that now happen on the property, including the ongoing construction, and future activities on the property once construction is completed, will be consistent with the AUL, as long as the engineered barriers, which are delineated on the AUL, are maintained. And there's an operation and maintenance plan that's part of the AUL that the industrial parties and the town jointly implement, which will continue to be the case going forward. Let me see if there's anything else I wanted to mention. Oh, and as to the grant of easement, the grant of easement is a separate document because a notice is basically an acknowledgement that you can or cannot do certain things to maintain a condition of no significant risk, but it's a notice. And basically, with the town as the owner of the property, the town recording the notice, it's a notice. There's no intrinsic enforcement to it. If you violate the terms of the AUL, you can be subject to enforcement by DEP. The industrial parties have an interest in making sure that the AUL is maintained because, like the town, they are responsible parties associated with the waste materials that are remaining under the barriers. So the grant gives them the ability to enforce, to implement the terms of the AUL. And it's the same arrangement that we have with the DPW yard, AUL and grant. So with that, I'd like to open up and address any questions you may have, and bring up Tor and Chuck if you wish to direct any questions to them.
I do have a question, but I don't want to jump to the front of the line. Just because my day job is a court reporter, and I do a lot of construction cases. And I've seen, and have come to respect the process with construction projects, the hierarchy, licensed site, professional engineer, OSHA rules, as well as agreements like this and others that address anything that can come up. And my thing is, the question that I have, and I'm not sure if it's to Attorney Fiore or Attorney Cunningham, when it talks about if we have to do anything on the site, relocation of contaminated soils or access egress for the athletic field and how big the equipment is or the daycare. And it says when those questions arise, that the first step, as I'm reading everything, is that that activity has to be evaluated by a licensed site professional as defined in the MCP, Massachusetts Contingency Plan, which I'm not very well versed on. So what my question is if we do get to that case in point, just because with my menial job as a court reporter, where I've seen tragic things happen where workers are severely injured or lose their life, as happened at Winchester Public Library within the recent past, is when those defined tasks either weren't outlined or there was a question about it, and usually it's starting at the beginning. So I'm wondering if we do get to the point where contaminated soils are identified or some use or uses comes into play and we have to kick everything in and start the beginning process with going to a licensed site, I want to get it right, licensed site professional.
Or you could just say LSP.
Okay, LSP, I can't stand when people do that. Who is the entity? Is it all the responsible parties? Is it the town of Arlington? Who chooses and oversees that first part, which is selecting the LSP, which will then set everything else into motion? Does that question make sense?
Yes, I think it does, and I think I could answer it, but if, obviously, you tell me if I'm missing the mark in terms of what I think your question is. When the, once the AUL is recorded, then the licensed site professional of record for the release tracking number 424, whatever, for this site, will also sign the AUL, and it'll be recorded, and then he will submit his final report, a permanent solution statement. At that point, everything will be locked into place. Going forward, if the town wishes to do anything other than what is a consistent use under the AUL, the town, as a first step, will need to retain an LSP to look at what seeks to be done, whether it's consistent with the terms of the AUL. If there's any question about it, it becomes a question of what needs to be done to continue to maintain a condition of no significant risk, consistent with the existing AUL. I should point out that in terms of the ongoing construction of the new high school, the construction team includes an LSP who has prepared and submitted plans that addresses and sets out the necessary steps to be taken given what is known about the nature and extent of the contamination on the site. So it becomes it's just integral to the planning process. And given that it's in a public record document like this, it's clear to anybody in the future that if you want to do anything like this, you need to have an LSP evaluate what you seek to do and how to do that in a way that maintains the, quote, condition of no significant risk.
Okay, if I could ask Attorney Cunningham, do you agree that what I'm hearing is that the town would oversee the LSP, so it would kind of be in the driver's seat, and then any costs going forward, would that be solely the responsibility of the town or all the responsible parties, Honeywell, et cetera?
Depends, Mrs. Mahan. I think that the current uses, as Attorney Fury had described, are contemplated by the AUL and therefore would not require the retention of a separate LSP. To the extent the town want to do something in the future that's not contemplated by the terms of the AUL, that could potentially be our cost. And I appreciate Mrs. Mahan's day job, which exposes you to, things do come up and risks can occur. But I think at this point, fairly confident that the uses anticipated on the sites are considered and contemplated by the terms. And so hopefully those would be infrequent, if at all.
Okay, and what I'm not asking the question, just, nobody's suggesting that, I am, to go through the exercise. It's just throughout this project and just about any construction project, especially with contaminated soils, everything's outlined in here, what we're gonna do moving forward in the future. My concern is that we come upon some hazardous contaminated soils or swales or waterways that aren't defined in here because we weren't aware of them, and it's a major cost. And once we discover it under DEP and EPA and all the other initials, we have to address it. Will we be on the hook? Say it was a 5, 6, 7-figure cost, that what's outlined in here is the parameter of here's what happens if that case in point comes up. But my thing is, if we come and we find there's yet another contaminated site that we didn't know about, but we have to deal with it, is the town 100% liable for that? Or is there a mechanism in here that we can go back and reconstitute and have conversations with all the industrial parties and responsible parties, of which originally Arlington was one of 5, 6, or 7?
I think I'd like to defer to Attorney Fury based on his familiarity with the site.
Because what you're getting at are issues that were addressed in large part in the 2001 settlement. Under the 2001 settlement, there was a commitment to achieve a permanent solution with respect to the high school property and something called a temporary solution, but which really isn't temporary, it's just the regulatory term, for the DPW yard. In exchange for the industrial parties undertaking that work, there are releases in the agreement. So that to the extent that,
That situation comes up again, that will be defined by the discussions and the agreements.
In
and
the
two-
2001
Which, believe it or not, I was in executive session on that and fought tooth and nail on that very point. So I didn't see any of that in here. So that, being very well versed with that, and if I'm hearing from both from both councils that 2001 agreement is still in effect, then I'm happy with that.
yes, the 2001 agreement is still in effect, which means the releases are still in effect.
Right, right.
But since 2001, there has been, this site, given its size, has been studied exhaustively, extensively. But be that as it may.
No, I'm happy with that. That's
It's the
fine.
2001 settlement agreement that sort of controls, in terms of the relationship between the industrial parties and the town.
I'm happy. That's all I wanted to get on the record. If in the future, myself or a future board member needs to come back on that, we now have that as part of the record. So I know what you're looking for tonight is I'm sorry, did you have anything else?
I just, again, since I have representatives
bring
of
them
the
up?
industrial parties here, I wanted to make sure that they feel okay with what I've said. Okay, all right.
All right. So I'll turn to my colleagues, Mr. Diggins.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I mean, so 2001, huh?
Yep. Kay Donovan, Brian Sullivan, executive session.
Well, maybe in another 24 years, I would appreciate or let me rephrase that, understand this enough to be able to ask a question about it. But right now, I'm just counting on legal counsel to say that this is good, because I started reading this, it's like, I don't know what questions to ask, so I'm really counting on you all, to get it right, and you have some experience, so thank you for that, and any other legal person, in here, to help out on this, so I'll do what you all recommend that I do.
Okay. Mr. Helmuth?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I appreciate the time that our environmental council took to explain this. I think I learned what I needed to know and feel comfortable with moving favorable action. So moved.
Okay.
Second.
Moved by favorable action by Mr. Helmuth, seconded by Mr. Hurd, that the board authorize the execution of a notice of activity and use limitation and a grant of use restrictions and access easement with respect to the Arlington High School and adjacent land located at 869 Massachusetts Avenue, and further that town council take all necessary steps to record said notice and grant, and seconded by Mr. Hurd. Any further questions or discussions? Attorney Cunningham?
Mr. Diggins?
Yes.
Mr. Hurd?
Yes.
Mr. Helmuth?
Yes.
Mrs. Mahan?
Yes.
4-0 vote, 1 recusal.
And thank you to Attorney Fiore for all your years and continued years work on this, as well as Mr. Helgeson and Mr. Mayette for sitting here and having to listen to me tonight. I do appreciate it. And look forward to working with you all in the future. And we can ask Mr. DeCoursey to come back in. Good to see you. Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you, Mrs. Mahan. Actually, just want to grab the agenda. Did you take, I don't know if I could borrow your copy?
Yep. Sorry, it's marked up, sorry.
So now we are on to warrant article hearings. Item 11, we have two warrant articles tonight. Article 15 is home rule legislation to amend the senior citizen property tax exemption. And Mr. Mann, our Director of Assessments, is going to be joining us for that. And before I do that, I'll turn to Mr. Helmuth.
I'm sorry, Mr. Chair, I had managed to mute my audio, and Would you please repeat that? I'm backing out.
You sure? We have two warrant article hearings. Both of them are on home rule petitions. So I was going to turn to you before we
Yes.
begin our
I
discussion.
appreciate that, Mr. Chair, particularly in my current state. Due to my employment by the Massachusetts legislature, I am obligated by the state conflict of interest law to recuse myself for any particular matters related to the town of Arlington as in petitions to the legislature. So I will mute myself. I will turn off my video. And Attorney Cunningham, does that suffice in this circumstance for recusal?
Attorney Cunningham?
Should I leave the Zoom meeting entirely?
No, that you're fine, Mr. Helmuth, by taking those actions satisfied the conflict.
Thank you very much.
Okay, all right. So with that, on Article 15, I'll invite Mr. Mann. Thank you for your patience tonight, waiting to be reached.
Absolutely. Hello, and thank you to the members of the Select Board. I'm Dana Mann, the Director of Assessments, and I'd like to speak on behalf of Article 15. The purpose of this article is to improve the administration of the senior means-tested exemption. This act was created by Chapter 285 of the Acts of 2020 and approved by townwide vote in November of 2023. During implementation of the exemption last year, several unintended consequences were revealed. Due to rounding rules at the Department of Revenue and requirements within the Act, all of the larger benefits were resulting from the tax rate that exceeded our tax levy limit. They were unavailable. They were not available as an option. In future years, these conditions may result in there being no viable options for the Select Board to choose from, which would result in no benefit to our applicants. There's also a condition where only the largest option would be available to the Select Board. And more unintended consequences are that this would affect our applicants. Yes, they would receive a large benefit in that particular year. However, it will likely disqualify these applicants from not only the local exemption, but also the state exemption, known as the circuit breaker tax credit. These we suggest that the changes that this act makes in the language will allow the use of existing funds in the overlay account in years that result in unfavorable options. Currently, all but one exemption is paid for out of the overlay account. The basis of the act provides that those residents whose income does not qualify for the exemption will pay for the qualifying applicant's benefits through the tax rate. This is true of the overlay payout, but the overlay puts all of the options on the table, so to speak. In other words, we would be ensured that there will not be any options for you to choose from. The Board of Assessors recently voted 3-0 to move this forward again this year. To reiterate, the purpose is to facilitate the implementation of this exemption.
Thank you, Mr. Mann. And before I turn to board members, we had this situation last October when you came in before us, and because of the way the initial legislation was passed, and if you want to go through some examples, you can do that as well, but because of rounding, we were limited in terms of what we could do because the exemption gets spread out among the residential class, whereas the Hingham example that you gave us, you have that option, or you have the use of the overlay, but that, by doing that, there's two funding sources for it. Is that fair to describe it that way, or?
Yes.
Okay.
So in years where we have an unfavorable option due to the tax rate, the overlay would allow us to, without any appropriation, fund, for a lack of a better term, the options that the select board can choose.
Okay, and no matter which way we go, we're limited to, that the maximum benefit can't be greater than 1% of the total levy? Is that what it is?
That's true, right?
Okay.
So that would not change.
Okay, all right.
The language is very succinct that we're changing.
Okay.
And it only relates to the use of the overlay or existing funds.
Okay, great. And I stopped you before you got, I don't know if you're going to run through some examples when I ask the questions, or if you want to just turn to board members for other questions too. Either way is fine with me.
I'm happy to do
Okay.
what you like.
Okay, all right. And let me just add one more thing. You had mentioned the overlay, and we think about the overlay every year. We're putting money into it. You think about it as satisfying tax abatements. You mentioned it satisfies most of the exemptions, and also on collectibles, but that would be the three areas. So this would be consistent with other exemptions if we were to recommend favorable action on this. Okay, so with that, I will turn to board members. Any questions, any motions?
I'll make a motion after, if this is a public hearing, if it.
Good point, yeah. So, yeah, why don't we open it up if there are any members of the public who wish to be heard on this article?
Seeing no hands raised.
Okay, and I don't see anybody in the chambers that wishes to be heard on it. Okay, all right, Mrs. Mahan, thank you.
I'd like to move approval to file a home rule petition to amend Chapter 285 of the Acts of 2020 by inserting the following language at the end of Section 3, quote, "are funded by an appropriation or transfer from existing funds while not exceeding 1% of the municipality's tax levy," end quote, "or take any action related thereto as recommended by the Board of Assessors."
I'll second, and for your sake, hope that this gets through on the consent agenda at town meeting, because I don't envy your position to explain this to 230 town meeting members.
Thank you, Mr. Hurd. Mr. Diggins?
I'm almost willing to bet that it won't, though. So that's it.
Wait,
Thank you.
hold. Okay,
All
good.
right, budget 3 nights, Mr. Moderator.
Okay, so on a motion for favorable action by Mrs. Mahan, seconded by Mr. Hurd. Attorney Cunningham?
Mr. Diggins?
Yes.
Mrs. Mahan?
Yes.
Mr. Hurd?
Yes.
Mr. DeCoursey?
Yes.
4-0 vote, 1 recusal.
Great. Thank you, Mr. Mann.
Thank you for your consideration.
Sure.
Have a good night.
So next, this is our last warrant article hearing. Everything else has been heard. This is for home rule legislation regarding package store licenses. And Mr. Feeney or Mr. Feeney?
Sure, happy to kick it off, but Ms. Sluzai, if she wishes to come to the table as well for any future questions. So this warrant article obviously was presented at, or inserted at the request of the town manager. I know that's a bit unorthodox for this board, but that was largely driven by the timeline of the closing of the warrant versus when the board had a meeting scheduled for the consideration of potential warrant articles. So, given the board's ongoing discussion regarding license quotas and policy changes, I took it upon myself to put this in there so that the board would have the opportunity to consider whether or not it wished to put before town meeting and ultimately the voters increasing the number of package store licenses that we have available to issue in Arlington. So I have on the screen here, and let me make sure I'm sharing it, a map of our currently licensed all alcohol package stores in Arlington. You'll note that one of the icons for City Wine and Spirits is of a slightly different color, and that just denotes that that is for an issued license, but for an establishment that has yet to open for business. So what this means is the board has issued all 6 of the licenses that it has available to it. So why this becomes a timely matter before the board is, and in fact, we already do have, someone submitted an application, I believe, 2 weeks ago to open an all-alcohol package store in Arlington, but we have since relayed to that applicant that the board, if they were to hear that matter, would be required to deny that application, given the fact that we do not have a license available to grant. So I just wanted to provide the board the opportunity this evening to consider whether or not we wish to move forward with providing for additional licenses, because the lack of available licenses can obviously have a chilling effect on economic development and commercial expansion in our business districts. But it also can create what has been seen in other communities, perhaps more so with on-premise liquor licenses, but they can start to be commoditized, and there can grow a secondary market for those licenses when you have reached your cap or quota, because then the license holder sort of has the ability to sell or arrange for the transfer to someone else at that location, and it can be done at such a cost that is a significant barrier to who can open or operate a business in your community. So the language before the board for consideration this evening proposes the addition of 2 all-alcohol package store licenses in Arlington. And with that, certainly want to acknowledge, the work done on this proposal by not just town council, but also the Office of the Select Board through both Ms. Marr, but also Mr. Mallet in doing a significant amount of research and preparation for this evening, so the board would have materials to consider.
Thank you, Mr. Feeney. Mr. Sidon?
You know what, yeah.
Okay.
I guess one thing I will note, though, is most municipalities do split their all-alcohol package store licenses into all alcohol and then specifically wine and malt. Though this warrant article is specifically for all alcohol package stores, that is an opportunity in the future that the board could consider.
Great. Thank you. Attorney Cunningham?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. This, just for the board's information, I'm sure you saw the memo and probably recalls, but for the public's information as well. This was last addressed by the board in 2018, special town meeting in May, where it went from 5 to 6 all alcohol licenses. It went before the legislature. It was before the townwide voters in 2019 at the annual election where it passed. So this would follow a similar path if passed. If the board moves favorable action and goes to town meeting, we'd file the home rule. It would then go to the annual town election next year in April of 2026, and if approved at that point, it would increase.
Great. Thank you, Attorney Cunningham. And just a point of clarification, if a store came that just wanted to sell beer and wine, the all-alcohol license would allow them to do that. It's just the limitation, if we had a separate license, they couldn't sell anything beyond that.
Correct, yes. I did also want to note that this particular applicant I've been talking to for 1.5 years, despite telling them that we don't have any package stores left, package store licenses left. They've just been incredibly determined to come here to Arlington. They're specifically seeking to sell beer and wine specifically, but yeah, if their business model has proven that there's demand, I would encourage any forgiveness with that.
All right, thank you. So I will turn to board members for comments, then I'll open it up to the public if anybody wishes to be heard, and then we'll come back for any motions. Mrs. Mahan?
Just one question. It's like, I'm thinking of when I was in the office in the past 6 months, and if I'm going to ask a question, but if it's a question I shouldn't be asking and shouldn't be answered, just tell me that. Is this particular applicant, if we considered Arlington as East, Center, and Heights, is this particular applicant would be considered asking for a request in the center? Can I ask that question or no? I don't need to know.
Yeah.
Okay, that's fine. That's fine. No, that's fine.
Yeah, no,
Okay.
okay, all right.
I think
thank
I
you,
know,
Mrs. Mahan.
but okay,
Yeah.
that's fine. Good. Thank you.
Okay.
No other questions.
All right, any comments, any?
So,
Mr.
I have a
Diggins?
question. I understand the issue if we don't have enough licenses. As Mr. Feeney said, it becomes commoditized and people start, selling the licenses. Is there any downside to having too many?
Theoretically, we could flood the market. There are natural concerns about, particularly regarding NIPS available at package stores, and, youth getting into nefarious activities. But from a market perspective in Arlington, I think we don't see any downsides.
Yeah. So I asked that kind of in the context of, we've kind of noticed, that the sales, in the marijuana stores, have gone down, and Mr. Helmuth gave an explanation that, I'm sorry he's not here now, but I just didn't understand it in the context of sales being down across the state. It was kind of indicating that there's more stores, and so there's more competition, and that explains why sales are down, here. But if they're down statewide, then it seems to me, that there's another issue going on with just demand. And it seems to me that, from what I understand too, that demand for liquor, it seems like people are drinking less,
Yes.
in general.
Oh, yeah, nationwide, the younger
Yeah.
generations are drinking half as much.
Yeah, so look, I'm going to support this, but I was just kind of thinking like, okay, well, we considered the risk if we have too few, but we should maybe think about the risk if we have too many, if market conditions are changing. So just to be aware of it, but yeah, I'm inclined to support. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Diggins. Attorney Cunningham, or Mr. Feeney, you both put your hand up. So-
Yeah, I think I just wanted to add, germane to that discussion is that obviously Arlington's quota is 6 because that's what was determined by Arlington's voters. But if you were to look at the quota that would otherwise be ascribed to the community, that would be 10. And the ABCC, the Alcoholic Beverage Control Commission, does that based on the population of the community. So we would still, if this proceeded or moved favorably, be under what they would deem to be, I guess, for lack of a better word, the appropriate amount for the community based on the size.
Thank you for that clarification, Mr. Feeney. Any other comments? Attorney Cunningham, did you want to add anything to that? or-
No, I said what the manager said.
Okay, great. All
I
right.
was going to make the same comment.
Good answer. Yeah.
They have a T-shirt for that.
Okay, now I will check to see if there are any members of the public who wish to be heard.
Seeing one hand raised.
Okay.
I'm going to promote them now. Whenever you're ready, Mr. Fury, if you would unmute your mic.
Okay, can you hear me okay?
Yes, we can. Good evening, Mr. Fiore.
Good evening. Thanks for letting me speak. Peter Fiore, 58 Mott Street, Precinct 2. I'd just like to say that I think that warrant Article 16 is premature, that I think you should wait until the AMP Up Committee has done their work on a new master plan and can sound out the community as to whether they want more package stores, and if so, how many, and maybe where they'd like to see the select board try to steer them to. And I think that doing this now would just undermine and circumvent their work that they're going to be doing. I was also a little bit taken aback by the commoditization argument, because it seems to me then the only way you can prevent the commoditization is to just keep issuing licenses until eternity, for eternity or whatever. But that's what I would ask you to do, is to just vote no action and to let that AMP Up committee do their work, and eventually in the future, the board would be able to make a better informed decision as to how many more stores, if any, the community wants and can support. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Fiore. So one other? Okay.
Promoting now.
Hi, this is Grant Cook. Sorry, I was just rejoining. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can. Good evening, Mr. Cook.
Just to that prior comment, as a member of the AMP Up committee, and not speaking in any official role for that, but in the sections we're developing, I don't know if we actually get into the development of specific retail or commercial opportunities. I think the level of the chapters and sections we intend to build focus on commercial in general, but I don't know if we're going to get down to cannabis and alcohol and nail salons, that sort of level. So it might be nice, but I think with all we have to do, that might be something that we don't directly touch on. Yeah, I mean, if we look at liquor package stores in the town, we already have up to 10 if you count the ones right at our border. So having those move within the borders of Arlington, if the demand is there, I mean, I think the presence of this cap is sort of an artificial legacy of a experiment that didn't really pan out in the 20s and 30s on prohibition. And I think while licensing is important from a regulatory standpoint, safety, making sure we have quality of training and efficacy of not selling to minors, the actual amount of stores, if they're run well, I think that to some extent is up to the market. So thank you. Bye.
Thank you, Mr. Cook.
Seeing no additional hands.
Okay, all right. I'll return to board members. Mr. Hurd.
I'll move favorable action. I think, we done this a couple of years ago, thinking that the licenses were going to get scooped up pretty quickly, and at least one or two of them sat around for a while. So I don't think it will automatically mean there'll be an influx of new package stores, but I think, having the ability to bring in new businesses is good. We deal with empty storefronts and whatnot, so we want to bring businesses into Arlington that will be successful. And so if someone thinks that they can come in, open a new package store, be successful, happy to oblige that. I think the 2 is a good number. We've done this a few times. I think it started with 3, and that's when we had the East Center Heights designation. I think one of the reasons Arlington was slow to roll out these licenses was the type of liquor stores that we wanted to see, in our business districts. And we try to set standards for what they're supposed to look like, what the front of them are supposed to look like. And we have a lot of applicants that come in and promise the world to us and don't always follow through. So, I think within the context of this, we really have to take a look at, how we're holding our current and prospective applicants to the standards that they had, promised us as they went through this process. Because there's just massive sign violations, and I think from the town side we don't have the manpower to continually walk up and down Mass Ave. But I would like to, as part of this process, start to get the applicants and the current businesses in line with that, because I think that will go a long way. This is a very democratic, of everything we do, this is a very democratic process where, it comes to us, goes to town meeting, then goes to a ballot question in order to happen. But, to convince applicants to support what we're putting forward, I think it's also, necessary for us to show residents that we're enforcing the rules that we put in place, that were the suggestion of the residents, to make sure that these stores are, fit within the fabric of the Arlington business districts. So it's just sort of a sidebar, but I think some is related to the whole process that, is an irritation for, I think, a lot of people, including members of this board, where people come, not just package stores, there's other businesses where, we put stipulations on how they have to operate, and they don't always live up to it, so.
Thank you, Mr. Hurd. Mr. Diggins?
Yes, I'll second it, and I'll tell you, the one argument that's not going to work with me is wait until we deal with this in the master plan update, because that brings back some bad memories. I'm fully supportive, and I hear what Mr. Hurd is saying, and as I kind of mentioned in a previous meeting, like either we enforce those standards or we get rid of them, and maybe the community has changed, and it's tolerant, of a different look. We could revisit that, but that's it. Supportive.
Thank you, Mr. Diggins. Mrs. Mahan?
And I will be supporting this, and I also am a little queasy about the AMP Up committee meetings, but for a completely different reason, including blocking Kristen Anderson from it, as well as she had written a warrant article regarding preserving the businesses that we do have here in Arlington. And it was suggested to her not to file it, which I think she's not going to, and that the AMP Up committee would pick up that issue, which I think they will, but I think it'll probably get dropped too. Because my big thing is, I think we do need to preserve the businesses in the business district that we have, and not look to them to the current pressing solution that we need for our affordable housing crisis that we and every other 351 communities in Massachusetts have. So I also have been told, wait for the AMP Up. She's been told, don't file that. AMP Up will do that on a committee that they wouldn't let her on, but she has more faith than I do. Whatever. Thank you.
Thank you, Mrs. Mahan. And I will also support this. I think one of the concerns that I had previously when we hit our maximum of 6 is that it creates a secondary market for licenses, and that can have a chilling effect on businesses that want to come in to the community. And so with the outside number being 10, we're not there. I was comfortable supporting an increase. And I think if a beer and wine establishment wants to come in, they can apply for the all alcohol licenses. Just so the market's going to determine that. So unless there's any other comments, I will take it to a vote on a motion for approval, favorable action by Mr. Hurd, seconded by Mr. Diggins. Attorney Cunningham.
Mr. Diggins?
Yes.
Mrs. Mahan?
Yes.
Mr. Hurd?
Yes.
Mr. DeCoursey?
Yes.
4-0 vote. Mr. Helmuth recusal.
Great, thank you, Ms. Lasai. Okay, so now, and we can welcome Mr. Helmuth back. We're going to be talking about our articles for review, final votes and comment, even to the extent that we have home rule issues. This is just the comments at this point. We don't have new votes. One of the things that did change from the last time on Article 11, we had a discussion about inserting deadlines. What I was going to do is go through each article, and I will start with Article 9, and then when we get to 11, I might open that up for a little bit more discussion, because there was some language that Attorney Cunningham added, and I know Mr. Stang is here from the Historical Commission, and he had some input into that as well. This one's a little bit different as compared with the other one. So Article 9, is there any hold or any questions on that? And all of these will be subject to a final review on April 7th for the comments. So if there's something that members want to look at between now and then, we're looking to have the final vote on the 7th. I confirm with Ms. Maher that we will still have time to complete our report and get it to the printer that week. Okay.
Mr. Chair.
Yes, Mr. Helmuth.
Thank you. Yeah, I don't want to hold things up by tabling it, but I think I've noticed, and I really put this, I think, on the board itself, that I welcome what you just said. I think that it'd be good to have an opportunity to have a chance to kind of go through this for consistency of style and voice and things. And we've had warrant article season is always people going every which way, and everybody's working really hard. But I think now that we're kind of coming down to the end, I think that there may be some benefit into some non-substantive style considerations. So I'm actually volunteering to help with that, maybe assisting the chair if that's useful. But I think I just want to kind of make the note that I would like to kind of reserve that opportunity to have some input into some editorial considerations just for consistency and clarity for town meeting as we go in as we into that. But understanding that we need to lock that down by April 7th. But I welcome your response to that, Mr. Chair, or any of my colleagues.
Thank you for the offer, Mr. Helmuth. I think we'll probably take you up on that and work with you on that. I think it's just good to have that flexibility. And then when all of the comments are in, it's helpful to review everything so that we have a product that's consistent too. Attorney Cunningham?
Yep, Mr. Chair, thank you. I'm happy to work with Mr. Helmuth or any board member who wants to reach out regarding any particular comment on any particular article that they would like changed, or just to be consistency, or bring that before the board as a final product at the meeting on the 7th. But I'm happy to work with any board member on to make this the document that the full board can support.
Great, appreciate that. Thank you, Attorney Cunningham. Okay, so I'll move to Article 11. Now, Article 11, when we had the discussion last time, we had talked about maybe the need for additional timelines in terms of this review. The board did move favorable action. Attorney Cunningham was asked to come back with some additional time deadlines, and I actually will ask him if you could just maybe walk us through what you had added since the last meeting.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chair. And specifically, I think that it was my belief from the board's hearing that there was a desire that we set some parameters in terms of specifically the timing for how long the commission would have to initiate a hearing, how long the commission would have to close that hearing, and then would have to issue its decision. So I tried to balance, both the proponent's desire for a timeline, the testimony that was offered at the public hearing from the historical commission, the feelings of the board that I at least as I interpreted them at the hearing. I did, pursuant to Mr. Helmuth's request, reach out to interested parties. I spoke to commission members and sought their input. I don't think it's exactly what the commission members were hoping, but I think I tried to strike the right balance. Obviously, the numbers and days in there are subject to the board's review, and the number of days will be whatever the board deems is appropriate. So those are kind of placeholder numbers, subject to discussion by board members, and whatever the board is inclined to support is what the numbers will be.
Okay, thank you, Attorney Cunningham. And just the way it is written here is there's a 45-day period to open the hearing. There's a 90-day period to conclude the hearing unless there's an agreement with the applicant, and then another 15 days to issue a decision. Now, we've already voted favorable action on this. There are some unique aspects to it because of the timing. So the public hearing is concluded. However, as to timing, if Mr. Thangy would like to, I don't know if you have any specific comments on this. You don't have to. I know you've had some discussion, but and again, this isn't whether we're going up or down. We're moving forward with this, but there's a question about timing. So if you have any comments you want to make, I'd welcome you up to do that, given the uniqueness here.
Okay, thank you. I appreciate it.
Sure.
Yeah, our concern is we only meet once a month. And we have hearings already every month. Not every month, but most months we have at least one hearing, sometimes several. And so our concern is that if an applicant files for a hearing and we have to have it within 45 days, depending on where it falls in the calendar, but there's also the notice time. We have to have 14 days of notice right before we can hold the hearing. And so that essentially means we have to have it at our very next meeting if we meet monthly, which doesn't allow very much time to look over the application, to try to get the documents that are pertinent to the application, do any archival research, deeds, photos, that kind of thing. So that's really the concern, is just having time to do a thorough job. And last thing I think anybody wants is for houses to be falling off the inventory simply because we didn't have time to deal with it. I mean, it would, make everybody look bad, but especially us. So, yeah, so that's the timing issue. Also, I did notice that since the last language, the question of who pays for the notices had changed. I don't know if that's a legal issue or not, but if the commission out of our budget has to pay for those notices, depending on how many there are, we don't have a very big budget, so that is an issue also. And just one other thing is we had hoped that there'd be some kind of provision to say that applicants couldn't reapply for a certain number of years if they were turned down the first time, unless the property changes hands. I don't know if that's something that could be included, 5 years, 3 years, something, because it feels like that might be an issue. I don't know.
Okay, all right, and then there's a zoning context there too. I just want to say on one of the things on the hearing, and just bear in mind, the 45 days is just a matter of opening the hearing, and one of the things that we heard from you last time is that you don't want to be in this situation where there's a constructive approval if you don't open a hearing, and that has been addressed in the comments from Attorney Cunningham. I think the language in there that allows an applicant to consent to a continuance, especially where it's in their interest to do it. If you feel like you don't have enough information and you ask an applicant for a continuance, it seems like it's in their interest to do that. So I don't know if you're looking at the 45 days as completing the hearing as opposed to just opening it, because that to me is the constructive approval. That's a legitimate concern that we heard loud and clear from you last time. But I did want to give you an opportunity to give comments because this had changed since last time. So I'm going to turn to board members now for any comments. If they have any questions of you, we certainly can do that. But we may be back to a deliberation phase at this point.
Okay.
Thank you. Mr. Diggins?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So given what you said about 45 days for starting, is 90 days enough to wrap it up for you?
And this is unknown territory to us. We've never done this, and as we said last time, there's only one other town in Massachusetts that does do this, and they're very small, a town of 6,000. We would hope so, in most cases, yeah. I think that my guess, and just a guess, is 75% of these will be very easy, yes or no. But it's that 25% that I think could be very difficult. I mean, there are all sorts of different conditions. And the big mystery is that we don't know why these houses were added to the inventory. I mean, we have the record, but the record is often very sparse. And so we have to kind of figure out what was it that the surveyors in the 70s, 80s, 90s saw about the structure. And sometimes that's easy, sometimes it's not. So it's 90 days, I think, would work fine for most of them. Just, I think there are going to be a handful that are hard to figure out, and that's what we're concerned about.
And so in that case, the continuance could come in and be a factor that would work for all parties? Or do you feel that that wouldn't work in certain situations and then you're just forced to make a bad decision? Or I'm trying to understand what happens if you run out of time.
You mean with the process?
Yeah.
Well, so someone would apply, and we would hold the hearing within 45 days, which would probably mean at our very next meeting from when they applied. Then, we could continue the hearing, certainly, and that does happen with our demolition hearings too sometimes. But it all depends on the amount of research and what's required to figure out why the house was on the list in the first place. And that's where it's a bit of a question mark. And it feels, these are houses that have been on that list for 20, 30, 40 years in some cases. So, it just feels like taking a little more time when necessary. And I do appreciate that we could ask the applicant if they're okay with going longer than 90 days. But I don't know, some might say yes, some might say no.
And to the extent they do that at their peril too, because they may not have provided you with enough. But
Yeah.
Mr. Diggins?
Well, I can certainly be just being on TAC, I mean, I know what it's like being for a volunteer committee, you know, that meets only once a month. I mean, if things don't line up correctly, I mean, then you just need more time. I mean, and so the 45-day can be, tricky. I can see, like, 60 gives you 2 cycles, and so, I mean, if you feel that 60 is reasonable, I mean, for you to kick off that hearing, but then you could still wrap things up, in 90 days, I mean, would that be?
I think that would help, certainly, yeah. And the 90 days, I mean, time will tell. If we do this over the first year and it is just unworkable, I guess there are ways to come back and adjust things, I would hope. But yeah, I mean, I think 45 days for that initial period would help a lot.
Yeah, so we'll still wrap it up. So I'm just asking
Yeah,
questions,
no,
things out there. So, all right, that's it. Thank you.
Okay, and from what you're saying, Mr. Stangy, if the board was so inclined to do 60 days, you could still live with the 90 days unless there's a continuance.
Yeah.
So it's really the start point. Okay, all right.
Sorry,
so-
I realized I just misspoke. I meant, 60 days and, yeah.
Yeah,
Yes,
okay. And perhaps keep the outside date. Mr. Hurd?
I should ask town council, can I jump into the discussion on this since I wasn't there?
Yes, Mr. Chair.
I actually this is one of the warrant articles hearings that I wanted to get to, but, my family duties called last week. But I think if it's a discussion between 45, 60, or 90, I think, if 45 isn't enough, then I think 60 would be the number. Because there is, I think in discussions with the proponent and, I've dealt with people who have, applied for a building permit and discovered they were on the list. And, ignorance of the law is not a defense, but I think, some bit of haste is important for some of the people that, are that will avail themselves to this process, where they have contractors lined up, they took out an equity line, they're, paying interest on a loan. So I think it is, a little bit of incumbent on the town to have a process that, that suits those needs too. And just, this has always been a little bit, the size of the list for years has been something that in this meeting and outside of this meeting that I've had issues with. I think at some point there was a couple of overzealous committee members that dramatically increased the number of historic structures. Really, in some instances, it might have been because they like the color of the gutters. But I would say, as a comment on the process, if you can't find any reason why it's on the list, then that's a pretty good reason why it shouldn't be on the list. So.
Thank you, Mr. Hurd. Attorney Cunningham?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I just wanted to comment on one of your earlier comments, Mr. Chair, regarding the end period, the 90 days, and the opportunity for the commission and the applicant to come to an agreement for a brief continuance. I think your point was well taken, that was put in there to try and reach a compromise based on what the board was talking about at its warrant article hearing, what the proponents were seeking, what the commission was seeking, because that, if the parties would take advantage of that brief continuance, it may give them a little bit more time to complete the hearing. They would be able to avoid a longer protracted process if they get a negative decision and they end up going, because of lack of information, have to go a different route, the courts, or have to wait for the 1-year demo delay. So that, the 90 days is the amount in the proposal, the language that's been forwarded to the board for its consideration. However, I believe that the inclusion at this point of the opportunity for the parties to come to an agreement regarding a brief extension, or however long they may want, I would envision something brief, that gives them a little bit of a cushion that may be palatable to both the commission and the applicant in trying to get relief in a timely fashion.
Thank you, Attorney Cunningham. Any other comments, or Mrs. Mahan?
With this, I think what I'm hearing be an appropriate time just on warrant Article 11 under Section 4D. on an appeal to remove a building from the inventory within 60 days, and the public hearing on the appeal shall be concluded within 90 days.
Right, right. And, yeah, so, well, I'm going to turn to Mr. Helmuth
Oh,
in one
sorry.
second, but I'll take that as a motion.
For
Do we have a second
discussion.
on that, just for discussion? At least? Okay, seconded by Mr. Diggins. Mr. Helmuth?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I appreciate the work that we've done and the responsiveness to my suggestion to town council and to the stakeholders to have a discussion and come up with something. And I really want to say I really appreciate Attorney Cunningham's recent comments pointing out why a 90-day constructive approval deadline can be effective and have a good outcome, I think, from the point of view of both the commission and a reasonable homeowner. There is a built-in incentive for a homeowner to provide the information that the commission needs in a timely fashion, because if they don't, the commission can just deny the permit, and then they have a long delay that can incur significant costs. So I'm actually comfortable with that. I think if the commission does feel like the extending to 60 days to start the hearing in order so they can do some more research, I think I'm fine with that as long as that the 90-day outer limit is still there. I think that's the sweet spot for me. I also appreciate Mr. Hurd's comments, and I'm glad to have the benefit of them based on his experience. I think we've all heard that, and we heard from commission members, and I appreciate this collaborative process with the commission, that, we acknowledge that there are some problems with this list. We don't really know the full extent of them, but I think given that consensus that there are probably some homes on there that ought not to be, and that fact could become a surprise hardship and an unfair hardship to some people who want to do some simple things to their homes. Suggests that I think really reinforces to me the wisdom of trying this. I agree with Mr. Stange that it is uncharted territories. I think I said last time that if town meeting takes the select board suggestion, if we go the direction I think we're going to go here, that it's incumbent on all of us to give you the help that you need, to work really hard to get you additional committee members, and to be responsive and listen to how this goes. But I appreciate that. I appreciate the collaborative spirit I think we've received. So if it hasn't been seconded, I think it has, but I'll certainly support the motion by Mrs. Mahan. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Mr. Helmuth. Any further? Okay. So on a motion by Mrs. Mahan, seconded by Mr. Diggins, to change the 45-day period to 60 days, everything else being the same, Attorney Cunningham.
Mr. Diggins?
Yes.
Mrs. Mahan?
Yes.
Mr. Hurd?
Yes.
Mr. Helmuth?
Yes.
Mr. DeCoursey?
Yes.
5-0 vote.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Stange. And on the recording of the vote, Mr. Hurd, we can now record that as a 5-0 vote.
Thank you very much. I know, I didn't expect to get to talk again, so I appreciate it.
Sure.
Thanks.
Okay, so that concludes Article 11 for now. Article 12, that was the bylaw amendment expanding town committee membership. I'm just going to keep reading down. If anybody wants to hold anything for comment now, please do so. Article 18, home rule legislation, ranked choice voting. Mr. Hurd?
I think, unless I'm misreading this, it says 3-1 vote. Shouldn't that be a 2-1 vote? The recusal and someone absent?
No, Mrs. Mahan voted last week.
Okay.
Her votes were recorded, so it became a 3-1. I was hoping to make it a 2-2, but no. It was a 3-1, I'm just kidding.
So can we remove the language that said she was absent?
Yeah, so that's going to be
And if
removed.
you
Yeah, thank you,
sign
Mr. Hurd. Yeah.
To any of the.
I voted on that one.
No, I mean on
The
any
other
of
ones
the-
where it has you absent.
Yeah.
If you
Yeah.
want to. It's that.
Yeah, so anything that you would vote, we can update that vote for the final report.
Okay.
Mr. Chair?
Yes, Mr. Helmuth?
I'm very sorry. I think, I know you said at the beginning that, you thought we could do these notwithstanding my recusal in the vote, but I guess I want some clarity from you, or perhaps Attorney Cunningham, as to whether what we're voting on now is merely the comment, or if we are affirming the original vote. Because if we are affirming the original vote, I really should recuse, or at least abstain. from these, or maybe for the ones that are home rule petitions?
Okay, thank you, Mr. Attorney Cunningham.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I view it as strictly a comment via vote.
Okay.
Thank
All right,
you,
then-
Attorney Cunningham.
Okay, thank you for that. I'm comfortable proceeding.
Yeah, thank you.
Mr. Chair, I just wanted to note on this particular article, there have been some revisions to the draft language. That was in response to Mr. Dennis and through Mr. Diggins. What I had originally put before the board in the memo that was initially filed was what the state legislature had considered and didn't act upon. This is the original language that was sent to the state legislature back then, according to Mr. Dennis, and I did the research. It was changed by the legislature at that time. It may be changed again, but I think it's the preference of the proponent that it be the original language, so that's what's before the board at this point.
Okay, for Article 18.
Correct.
Okay, thank you. All right. Article 20, Article 21, and Article 46. That was the parking benefit district. Okay, so nothing further on that, and all of these comments will be added. We will have another version to vote on April 7th. So with that, that concludes the agenda. I want to thank Mrs.
Should we vote articles, everything but Article 11, final votes and comments? So-
Sure.
So only 11 is the one that's out there, so I'd like to approve the final votes and comments for Article, and should I separate this vote, Article 18, take that out? Should Mr. Helmuth not vote on, or he can vote on comments?
Just comments, yeah.
Okay. Approval, final votes and comments, Article 9, 12, 18, 20, 21, 46.
Second.
Okay, so a motion by Mrs. Mahan, seconded by Mr. Hurd to approve all articles, but Article 11, Attorney Cunningham.
Mr. Diggins?
Yes.
Mrs. Mahan?
Yes.
Mr. Hurd?
Yes.
Mr. Helmuth?
Yes.
Mr. DeCoursey?
Yes.
5-0 vote.
Okay, that concludes the articles for review. We are now on to new business. Before we get there, I want to thank Mrs. Mahan for sharing her agenda while I was waiting for my computer to return.
With all my
after
chicken
my
scratch,
absence.
yeah.
So I appreciate that. So new business, Ms. Marr?
No new business, thank you, Mr.
Attorney
Chair.
Cunningham?
No new business, Mr. Chair, thank you.
Mr. Feeney?
No new business, thank you.
Mr. Diggins?
Three things potentially, it's short. My understanding is that the special street restrictions, the remaining of them have been rescinded. Is that true? So I got an email, from Mr. Stubby, the chair, so.
On the rest of the special speed limits.
Just checking that now, Mr. Diggins.
Let me just check my.
Sure.
email.
Sure. And the other two is that the Civic Engagement Group is having a hybrid meeting on the 27th, this coming Wednesday, and we're going to have a little Q&A session as part of the meeting, with the chair and vice chair, and so we're asking that, it's hybrid. In person will be, at Menominee Manor, the Learning and Skills Center, and we're asking that, that be reserved pretty much for the residents of Menominee Manor, but everyone else is welcome to join remotely. So that's the second thing. The third is that there's going to be a virtual candidates night for town meeting members only, or town meeting member candidates only. That will be on April 2nd, and by definition, it's going to be remote, 7:30, 9 o'clock. This is going to be the sixth one. We started these during the pandemic, and they're fun. So that's it. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Diggins. I don't know if you've been able to clarify that, Ms. Marr.
Yes, so the state actually got back to us on March 11th, approving the special speed regulations that the board had approved back in, forget the date, I'm sorry.
Yeah, that's right.
But yes, we did get confirmation on March 11th through James Danila, the state traffic engineer, that those were approved by MassDOT.
Great, thank you.
And Mr. Stubby is very excited, and the safety working group is getting to work on figuring out where to put the signs and report those to the town manager, who can then convey them all to DPW. And they'll do what they can.
Great, thank you, Mr. Diggins. Mrs. Mahan?
4 quick ones, I hope. This Friday, the 28th, is the Guns and Hoses, Arlington Police Department, Arlington Fire Department charity hockey game at the Ed Burns Arena at 7 PM. The second is, I see that we all received a correspondence from Ms. Saracen of Gray Street, and I assume the town manager also received this, and if not, I'll give him my copy, but he is, along with us, identified in that correspondence. The third thing is barring us not having a meeting on March 31st, which it looks like, meaning the select board, we probably will not. I do plan on attending the March 31st Park Ave public hearing. So I'll leave it to the chair if more than two of us are planning on on attending that meeting, if it should be posted out of the abundance of caution as a select board meeting, although I don't plan to deliberate or take any votes with my colleagues. And then the fourth thing is, and I know we're not done yet, but I have this down, and maybe I jinxed it, but I sincerely, saving the best for last, do want to thank Attorney Cunningham and Attorney Munson, not only for everything they do every day, but all my years of being on the select board, and as we go further and further into warrant articles and warrant article hearings, the labor-intensive load for our town council and assistant town council has only increased every year, and keeping up with those deadlines, and coming from the mode of originally not getting anything from that then town council to getting it Monday morning, Monday afternoon, I do appreciate, and I know how difficult it is to balance the expeditiousness of getting comments and remarks to all members of the board, select board's office, and to the town manager, but also being mindful that you need to take, and Attorney Munson needs to take the time to go over it probably at least 4 times in terms of legalese and what needs to be in there, and none of us take it for granted. Although it seems like we kind of peruse and skim through it, but that's because A, it's so readable, B, it's so dependable concerning the law and the interpretation of it, and C, I kind of look like I know what I'm talking about because of the comments that are there to guide me. And believe it or not, it kind of limits some of my chatter that I would have. So I just wanted to pass on the thanks personally to Attorney Cunningham, to also Attorney Munson, and also, and I'm blanking on Peter's last name.
Peter Buckley.
Attorney Buckley. Peter Buckley, please thank him on behalf of all of us. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Mrs. Mahan. Mr. Hurd?
This was referenced earlier, but since it comes in before our next meeting, on April 6th, we officially have our kickoff for the Arlington 250 celebration. I'm looking at the invitation right now. It says party like it's 1775. I don't know how they partied back then, but I bet it would be a good time. So this is at the Capitol Theater from 11 a.m. to 2 p.m. April 6th. Kids craft, colonial music and dancing. Mr. Diggins. Arlington 250 exhibits, event information, a lecture on the Battle of Menominee, selfie station with William Dawes, free ice cream, theater, snacks, beer and wine for sale. So it should be a good event, and it will it'll kick off the festivities of the month of April that hopefully be very memorable. I have some new colonial gear on order, so I'm trying to step up my game from last year. So it should be fun.
Thank you, Mr. Hurd. Mr. Helmuth?
Well, I can't compete with that, but almost as fun as everything Mr. Hurd just said will be the Park Avenue Safety Improvements Project public meeting a week from, or on Monday night, the 31st, and I'm pleased that we were so efficient with the help of Mr. Chair and, as Mrs. Mahan suggested, the able work of our legal department to finish our business so that we don't need to have a select board meeting that night. So I'm looking forward to that. Per Mr. Diggins' comments in his new business with the rescinding of the special speed limits, that, you know, as this board is well aware, that was just the very first step in a much larger initiative townwide to be responsive to the increased number of collisions with terrible outcomes we've had from vulnerable road users in particular. So I encourage people who are interested in this, certainly those who, as I do, live near Park Avenue, but anywhere in town is interested in kind of how the town is thinking and planning and investing and new road design ideas and new priorities when it comes to additional steps that we need to take to increase safety on some of our critical roadways and pedestrian ways. To come Monday night, it's at 6:30 at Town Hall on the 31st, and participate in that and learn. And I look forward to seeing everybody there, and I want to thank the town manager and his team for making that happen and everything that led up to it.
Thank you, Mr. Helmuth.
One more thing, Mr. Chairman?
Yes, Mr. Diggins.
Thank you. This is our last meeting with you. You know, it's been great. You know, so yeah, because I was thinking we're gonna have a meeting on the 31st. But before we know it, it'll be the 7th, and we'll be starting the meeting with our admin leading the meeting.
Chairman Pro Tem,
So
Chairperson Pro Tem, or
so-
Chairman.
So yeah,
Did
did a great job.
Thank you, Mr. Diggins. Yeah, now I'm going to take that for my new business. This is our last meeting before the election day, so it'll be my last meeting as chair. And I want to start with Ms. Marr and Britton and Caroline in the Select Board office for making my job easy and for all the support and all the help and all the last-minute calls I would make days of meetings. So I really appreciate your leadership of the office and for the work that the three of you are doing there for us as a board. I want to thank Mr. Feeney for his collaboration the past year. You work closely with the town manager. We all do, but even more so as chair. I want to thank Attorney Cunningham and Attorney Munson for the number of calls that we had on various issues and for you taking time, sending us things at all hours to help us do our job better. So we really appreciate that. And lastly, I want to thank my fellow board members for making my job easier as chair this past year. It was a pleasure serving as chair, and look forward to serving with the next chair on April 7th. So with that, I will take a motion to adjourn.
Well, I would say good luck. Hopefully, there's not a significant write-in campaign for select board.
I was going to try to keep that on the. That's right.
down.
Yeah,
To adjourn.
just to encourage people, April 5th is election day, so thank you, Mr. Hurd. Do we have a motion to? Oh, Mr. Hurd?
Move to
Okay.
adjourn.
Okay, motion to adjourn by Mr. Hurd, seconded by Mrs. Mahan. Attorney Cunningham?
Mr. Diggins?
Yes.
Mrs. Mahan?
Yes.
Mr. Hurd?
Yes.
Mr. Helmuth?
Yes.
Mr. DeCoursey?
Yes.
5-0
Meeting-
vote.
Thank you, meeting adjourned.